Before I died at 70, I learned the most soul-crushing truth of my life: my only son wasn't biologically mine. The boy I raised, fed, taught, loved, and sacrificed everything for, knelt by my deathbed and said with the calmest expression, "You've lived a good life being a housewife all these years. Once you're gone, let my real mom enjoy what you've had." And right behind him stood Ethan Carter, my husband of decades, coldly holding Vanessa Collins's hand, the same woman he brought into our home at the end and forced my dying hands to stamp a divorce agreement. We barely spent any good years together anyway. You're leaving soon. Why not give us a chance to be happy? I was too stunned to cry, too exhausted to scream. The betrayal had calcified into silence. I died in that sterile hospital bed with no dignity, no love, and no family. But fate decided I deserved another round. When I opened my eyes again, I wasn't staring at hospital ceilings. I was in my early 20s again, standing right in front of the Greenfield Village office, holding the marriage report I'd written to tie myself to Ethan. My hair was still tied into twin braids, and my hands were shaking. This was the exact day I'd filed the marriage report in my last life. Without wasting a breath, I spun around and chased after the postman like my life depended on it.
Wait.
Sir, please send that report. The postman blinked, stunned. Claire Bennett? Aren't you marrying Ethan Carter today? The whole village has been talking about it. I wrote my name wrong, I blurted, using the first lie that came to mind. My heart was thudding so hard, I thought it would burst out of my chest. I could feel the wind lifting my braids as I scrambled to grab that stupid envelope from his hand. He chuckled, probably thinking I was just a nervous bride. Didn't expect the daughter of Springfield University's president to mess up her own name. Here you go, correct it. I faked a sheepish laugh, but the moment his eyes turned away, I ripped the marriage report into pieces like it was on fire. That paper was a one-way ticket to hell in my last life. No way was I repeating that mistake. Asked for new paper and wrote a completely different requesto, leave early for Springfield. The official approval to return to the city had already arrived. I just needed to say my dad was sick and needed me back immediately.
Easy.
With the form filled and handed over, I let out a slow breath. I was going home. Alone. And this time, I was leaving Ethan Carter behind in Greenfield forever. I didn't even mention him on the application. But life, of course, loves irony. The moment I stepped out of the office, there he was, Ethan Carter, jogging toward me with that big, boyish grin that once made my heart flutter. His work clothes were dusty and worn, and he still had that sun-kissed charm that made the village girl swoon. But now, all I saw was a manipulator in a good disguise. "Claire, did you send the report?" he asked, taking my hand without hesitation. I forced a smile and pulled my hand back discreetly.
Yep.
Just got out of the office. Great, he beamed. Then we're husband and wife now. When we get to Springfield, as long as your dad helps me land a good job, we'll live the good life, you know? That line again. That line I once found sweet. In my last life, I was so head over heels for him that I'd nod at everything he said like some brainless puppy. I thought we were building a future together. Turns out, I was just building a ladder he used to climb higher. I gave him a non-committal nod and watched as he exhaled with relief. Then his gaze shifted casually, restless light toward someone at the edge of the house. That's when I saw her, Vanessa Collins. The woman who ruined my final days. Her figure was fragile, leaning against the fence like a tragic heroine, eyes soft and weak. Ethan's demeanor changed instantly. He turned to me with a rushed excuse. "Well, now that the report's sent, I have work to do. You should head back. I'll catch up with you later." "Sure," I replied. But I didn't leave. I followed. Quietly. I wanted to confirm what I already suspected. And sure enough, the moment he thought he was out of sight, Ethan walked straight to her, gently pulled her into a hug and said, "Vanessa, you shouldn't be out. You're too delicate to be walking around like this." Just hearing it made my stomach turn. They were already together before I married him in the last life, and I had been the fool wedged between them. In Greenfield, people whispered about Ethan and Vanessa all the time. Said they were like soulmates. I'd confronted him about it once back when I was young and dumb, and he clutched my hand and cried, swearing she was just a sick neighbor and he was helping her out of kindness. Claire, you're from the city. You've never starved. You don't know what it's like to go hungry. Jimiao's family raised me after my parents passed. Helping them is just me repaying kindness. I fell for all of it. His poor man's sob story. His puppy dog eyes. His promise that he loved only me. And what did I get in return? A loveless marriage, a fake child, and betrayal that followed me to the grave. But not this time. Not again. Watching the two of them standing there like some tragic romance novel, I could only smile to myself.
Fine.
If they love each other that much, then let them rot in this village together. I'd return to Springfield alone and never look back. Ethan Carter and Vanessa Collins could grow old right here, far away from my future. Because this time, I was rewriting everything starting with my freedom. The next morning, I showed up early at the Greenfield Village office, and as expected, the return approval had come through. I was officially allowed to leave for Springfield today. No delays, no setbacks, no Ethan. I took a deep breath, reminding myself this was the start of everything I should have had in the first place, a life on my own terms. I headed straight for Mr. Harris, the village chief, to pick up my introduction letter. In my last life, he had always been kind to me. He'd helped clean up the youth quarters when we first arrived from the city, and when I struggled with farm work, he had his daughter teach me how to do even the basics. He was also the one who encouraged all the village kids to take the college entrance exams when they were reinstated, but back then, I was too focused on being a good little wife for Ethan Carter to bother with something as selfish as my future. Ethan took the exams 3 times and finally got into a decent university with my help. And me? I spent my youth making rice, mending socks, and raising a child that wasn't even mine. As Mr. Harris scribbled out my documents, he chuckled warmly. Back when you first arrived in Greenfield, that Carter boy wouldn't shut up about how the daughter of Springfield University's president was coming here. Begged me to introduce you too. Said he'd do anything for a chance with you. I thought you'd be out of his league, honestly. That stopped me cold. So he knew who I was the entire time? My family background wasn't a sweet surprise to him. After marriage, it was the whole reason he chased me. That love at first sight nonsense was just calculated ambition. I gripped my skirt tightly under the desk, forcing my expression to stay calm. Mr. Harris, I said evenly, there's only one slot for return to the city. Please just write the letter for me. Just me. He blinked, looked surprised. Wait, just you? Aren't you and Ethan married? Why not go back together? I gave a bitter smile and shook my head. We're not married. I tore up the application before it was ever submitted. I thought about it carefully. He and Vanessa are childhood sweethearts. I don't want to stand between them. The village chief's face fell into one of those expressions older folks get when they know gossip has become truth. His eyes softened with regret. That's a shame, he murmured. But what will you do back in Springfield all alone? I straightened my back and looked him in the eye. I'm going to study and take the college entrance exam. I'm not wasting my second chance. He blinked again, clearly startled. But then he smiled, warm and proud. Well, if there's one thing this village teaches us, it's that hardship grows a person. You've grown up, Claire. I'm glad. As I left the office with the letter clutched in my hand, I felt lighter than I had in years. Until I rounded the poplar trees behind the schoolhouse and saw Vanessa Collins tugging Ethan behind a tree, whispering something. I should have walked away. I had everything I needed. But curiosity or maybe habit froze me in place. Ethan, what do I do? Vanessa's voice was thin, shaking. I'm pregnant. That hit me like a slap across the face. Pregnant. She was pregnant back then, too, wasn't she? That child I thought we'd adopted, that boy who refused to acknowledge me on my deathbed, wasn't a stranger's orphan. He was their son. The very baby whose existence Ethan had kept hidden while pretending to be my loving husband. Ethan looked stunned for all of a second before his entire face lit up with joy. You're really pregnant? Then, of course you're keeping it. I'll take care of you both. Vanessa started crying again, but this time her tears were more calculated. But what about Claire? Aren't you two going back to Springfield together? Ethan frowned like she'd reminded him of a mosquito bite. I'll never change my mind about you. I'm marrying Claire only so her dad can give me a job. Once I get settled in Springfield, I'll bring you and the baby there. Our family will finally have the life we deserve. I swear I felt the sky tilt. So that's what that was. They'd been together long before Ethan even proposed to me. And that accident when I fell into the freezing river during my early days here, the one that left me unable to have kids, suddenly didn't feel so accidental. Just like that, every moment from my last life realigned into something uglier. The dots connected, and the picture that emerged was one of manipulation, deceit, and calculated cruelty. I stepped out from behind the tree, like a ghost come to haunt them. Ethan's face went pale as he instinctively dropped his arms from around her. I looked at them both and said, well, this is cozy. Broad daylight, no shame at all. Ethan sputtered. Claire, you've got it all wrong. Vanessa wasn't feeling well. I was just helping her back home. Yeah, I said flatly. Then why don't you have her call me sister-in-law? He nudged her, and Vanessa, clearly caught off guard, muttered awkwardly. Hi, sister-in-law. I nearly laughed. The performance was so bad I could have sold tickets. They really thought I was still that dumb girl from the city who'd fall for this recycled act? I stared at their intertwined hands and saw a flicker of my deathbed again. Them, standing side by side, forcing me to leave everything behind so they could take my place. I don't need your lies, I said calmly. Don't call me sister-in-law. I look like the villain in someone else's romance story, and I've had enough of that role for one lifetime. Ethan finally let go of Vanessa and reached for me, his face twisted in forced charm. Come on, Claire. Don't be mad just because I didn't help you pack. I'll walk you to the youth center now. Stay at my place before you go. We're getting married soon, remember? I took a step back. We're not getting married, Ethan. I'm not going to your house. You can sleep with whoever you want, raise whatever child you want, but leave me out of it. He blinked, shocked I was being so direct. Then the panic kicked in. He lunged to stop me. Claire, stop being dramatic. We're practically married already. You can't just cancel that. I've done nothing wrong. You've done plenty, I snapped. Now let go. I tried to break free, but his grip was tight. Just as I was about to slap him away, Vanessa gasped loudly and collapsed to the ground, clutching her stomach. Ouch, she cried. It hurts, Seth, and it hurts. He let me go instantly and dropped beside her, panic written all over his face. Vanessa, stay with me, okay? It's all right. It's going to be okay. Then he turned to me like it was all my fault. Claire, what the hell is wrong with you? You made her upset. If anything happens to her or the baby, that's on you. You've always been spoiled and selfish, he added with a sneer. Even after living in this village for so long, you haven't learned a damn thing about humility. He hoisted her up and rushed off to the clinic, leaving me standing there like a piece of discarded trash. But what he didn't know, what he'd never know, was that this was the last time he'd ever see me look at him again. Because I wasn't sticking around to be blamed, manipulated, or discarded a second time. There was no tomorrow for us. Only the future I was finally claiming for myself. I returned to the youth dorm with my bags half packed and my heart fully done. A few of the girls I used to bunk with walked in just as I was zipping my suitcase, and of course, they couldn't help but toss in some passive-aggressive commentary like old times. Wow, Claire, you packed fast. Moving in with your man already. One of them joked, nudging another with her elbow. Guess you just couldn't wait, huh? Filing that marriage report yesterday and moving your stuff out today, girl, you're whipped. In my last life, I probably would have blushed, giggled, and played along like some lovesick idiot because, yeah, I was head over heels for Ethan Carter. I probably mentioned his name 10 times a day like a fool with a crush. But today, I didn't even flinch. His name alone now felt like a rash I couldn't wait to scratch off. I didn't bother answering them. Just grabbed my stuff, rolled my suitcase to the door, and left. Not long after, while I was halfway to the road out of Greenfield, Ethan showed up at the dorm with his usual fake concern, only to find my bed empty and the girls gossiping in confusion. "She just left," one of them told him. "Didn't she go to find you?" He panicked, of course. The realization must have hit him like a brick to the gut. Vanessa had stopped pretending to faint as soon as they'd passed the clinic sign and walked herself home just fine, which gave him just enough time to start thinking about the one thing he cared about most, his own future. My absence must have hit him hard, because the next thing I knew, word was spreading that Ethan had gone straight to Mr. Harris in a total panic, begging for answers. "Where's Claire? She's missing. Did she say anything to you yesterday?" he asked the chief, probably already sweating bullets. Mr. Harris, bless his heart, just looked at him with that stone-cold expression only older men with common sense have. "Ethan Carter, don't kid yourself," he said flatly. "She didn't marry you. She never submitted that report. You're not her husband, and you're not going back to Springfield with her." I can practically imagine the sound of Ethan's brain short-circuiting.
What?
"That's impossible. She loves me. She wouldn't leave me. Not like this." But Mr. Harris just shook his head, totally unimpressed. "She helped you and Vanessa. Someone saw you two running around the village like you were rehearsing for a soap opera. If Claire really married you, she'd be throwing away her dignity. You should thank her for not turning you in instead of embarrassing yourself. That should have been the end of it, right?"
But no.
Ethan was too stubborn, too entitled, too obsessed with the life he thought he deserved. Even after I left Greenfield, he kept writing me letters, pathetic, manipulative things filled with fake apologies and long-winded promises about our future. I threw every single one of them straight into the trash without opening a word. He even tried applying for family visit permits, thinking maybe he could sweet-talk his way back into my life in Springfield. Spoiler: they were all denied. Meanwhile, I walked back into my old home in the city, like someone who had just clawed their way out of a nightmare. My dad, Robert Bennett, was waiting at the door. I hadn't seen him in years, and the moment he saw me, he pulled me into a bear hug like he was afraid I'd disappear again. "Claire, thank God. You're home. You're really home," he said through tears. My mother had died when I was little, and my dad was all I had left in this world. In my last life, I took him for granted, left home without a second thought, and then never told him the full truth of what was happening. All I ever did was send fake letters pretending everything was fine. But this time, I was going to do it differently. This time I was staying. "Dad," I said as I hugged him back, "I want to take the college entrance exam. I want to go to school, get a job, and never leave you again." He looked at me with so much pride and relief in his eyes that I almost burst into tears again. He helped me get enrolled in a nearby prep school, and even though I'd missed a lot of classes while in Greenfield, I still had all my old textbooks. I'd been studying during quiet nights in the village, even when no one believed in me, and that effort paid off. I caught up quickly. I worked harder than I ever had in my life, not just because I wanted a future, but because I knew what it was like to waste one.
Eventually, I passed.
University welcomed me with open arms, and for the first time since being reborn, I felt like I was exactly where I belonged. But of course, nothing good lasts forever when your past doesn't know how to stay dead. One day, I walked through the front door after class and stopped cold. Ethan Carter was sitting on our couch.
Sitting. In. My.
Living.
Room.
The audacity. He stood up like we were old friends, wearing this half-smirk, half-fake humble expression. "Claire, long time no see. I heard you got into university. That's amazing. I'm really proud of you." I stared at him, utterly speechless, until my dad walked out of the kitchen and smiled. "Claire, this young man saved your life once. You never mentioned it, but he told me everything. How he pulled you out of the river when you were drowning. He's come all this way to see how you're doing." I figured the least we could do is thank him properly. My entire body stiffened.
Saved me?
Is that what he told my dad? That he rescued me? What a sick joke. In my past life, I believed that story for years. I thought he was the brave guy who jumped in after me when I fell into the water during those brutal first weeks in Greenfield. But right before I died, Vanessa told me the truth that it was Ethan who pushed me in, that he wanted me out of the way, that he crippled my ability to have children with that one act and then used that accident as a foundation for his hero story. I looked at him and saw red. "You really have no shame," I said coldly. Ethan's fake smile faltered. "What do you mean?" "I mean, how dare you come here and pretend to be a savior?" I grabbed a bowl of local specialty snacks from the table and flipped the entire tray onto the floor. "You think I forgot what you did to me? You think I'll let you spin your little fantasy here?" My dad looked shocked. "Claire, what's going on?" I turned to him quickly. "Dad, please." "He's lying. That day in the river? It wasn't an accident. He planned it. He's been manipulating everything since the moment we met." My dad's face went blank, then darkened. He turned to Ethan slowly. "Is that true?" Ethan, to his credit, tried to play innocent. "Sir, I don't know what Claire's talking about. Everyone in the village saw me save her. She must still be upset about our breakup." And then, the man had the gall to try and spin it again. "Claire, remember how you followed me around after that day? You said you wanted to marry me. You were always saying how we were meant to be." I nearly gagged. "Are you really trying to guilt-trip me into marrying you again? After everything?" Before I could scream him out of the house, my dad held up a hand. "Comrade Carter, I appreciate what you claim to have done. And if you did help my daughter, I thank you. But she's still in school. She's not getting married anytime soon. I'll arrange a job for you, like you requested, but in return, you'll stay away from my daughter." "Understood." Ethan hesitated, then nodded with a fake grin. Of course he did. That job was all he wanted in the first place. He got what he came for. As he walked out the door, he turned to me and sneered under his breath. "You're going to regret this. What's the point of a girl like you reading all those books? One day, you'll come begging to marry me. And I won't be so generous next time." I didn't respond. I just stood there, watching him walk away, and promised myself one thing. Next time I saw Ethan Carter, it wouldn't be as someone he could threaten or manipulate. It would be as the woman who burned his whole fake world to the ground. After that day, I finally felt like I could breathe again, like Ethan Carter's shadow was starting to fade from my life, but just because I was done with him didn't mean he was done with me. While I buried myself in my college work, balancing assignments and tutoring gigs to help Dad with bills, Ethan started spiraling, exactly as I knew he would. He thought that landing a job my father arranged meant he'd coast into a golden life, but reality hit him like a slap. Turns out, when you're lazy, entitled, and only know how to talk big, you don't go very far. Within a few months, everyone at the municipal development office started seeing him for what he was, a guy who brown-nosed higher-ups and bullied anyone he thought beneath him. He had zero real skills, and worse, he thought he could bluff his way to the top. His co-workers avoided him, his supervisors stopped giving him anything meaningful, and promotions? Yeah, not even close. I didn't have to lift a finger, was ruining himself just fine. Meanwhile, I was quietly thriving. I earned top marks in my classes, built solid friendships, and even got mentioned in the local newspaper for excellence in education. Eventually, I graduated and started teaching at a local middle school. It was everything I'd once dreamed of, but never let myself pursue. My dad was proud, my students respected me, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I had real value, not as someone's daughter or someone's wife, or someone's backup plan, but as me, Claire Bennett. And just when I thought maybe, just maybe, I could finally live in peace, Ethan popped back up like mold after a flood. He cornered me outside my school one afternoon, leaning against his beat-up bike like some washed-up teen movie villain. "Claire," he said with a smirk, "you've really grown up. All successful and glowing. You look great." I didn't even slow down. "Ethan, what do you want?" He followed me down the sidewalk, undeterred. "I respected your space while you were studying, didn't I? I didn't bother you then. But now that you've graduated, don't you think it's time we talk about our future?" "We don't have a future," I said coldly, quickening my pace. But he was relentless. pedaling alongside me like some determined parasite. Come on, Claire. We had something real once. All we need is a marriage certificate. Why marry someone you barely know when you could be with Masamion, who gets you? I stopped dead in my tracks, spun around, and stared him down. Ethan, you don't get me. You never did. All you got was a free ride on my family name. My dad handed you a job out of pity, and you've been floundering ever since. So, do us both a favor and stay out of my way. His smirk faltered, and then the mask dropped. So, what? You think you're better than me now? Just because you got a degree and a desk job? I didn't flinch.
Yes.
Yes, I do. That hit him where it hurt. His face turned red, and he lashed out with the nastiest thing he could think of. You really think you're a prize? You're a woman who can't even have kids. You're lucky I'm still willing to take you in. What do you think other men will do when they find out? Pity you? Leave you? You should be grateful I'm offering anything at all. That was it. I slapped him, hard and loud enough to turn heads from across the street. You don't get to talk about me like that, I said through clenched teeth. Not now. Not ever. Touch me again, and I'll have the police on you so fast your head will spin. He stepped back, rubbing his cheek, eyes burning with humiliation. You'll regret this, Claire. I promise you will. And then he left, but not for long. A week later, the rumors started. Whispered in hallways. Mumbled in staff rooms. That I was some ex-farm girl who'd been shacked up with a man in the countryside. That I was damaged goods. That I used people to get where I was. I knew immediately who was behind it. Ethan was trying to smear me into submission, force me back into his life, through humiliation. He'd done it before in my past life and it had worked. But this time, I was ready. The school administration called me in, faces tight with concern. Claire, we don't believe a word of these rumors. But it's causing a distraction. We just want to make sure you're okay and see if you have a plan for dealing with it. I nodded. I do. Trust me, I've got this.
And I did.
I wasn't the same naive girl who let things slide. I took a short leave of absence, prepped my documents, and marched straight into Ethan's workplace. He was lounging near the reception desk like he owned the place when he spotted me. Claire?
Wow, what a surprise.
Miss me already? I smiled sweetly, holding up an envelope. Came to file a report. You still want to marry me, right? His eyes lit up. Hook, line, sinker. Of course. I knew you'd come around. He practically ran ahead to lead me to his manager's office like a dog chasing a treat. I let him bask in the attention as we walked past his stunned coworkers, some of whom actually clapped him on the back like he'd won a lottery. He was glowing with pride. Told you, he muttered. We were meant to be. Once we were inside, the manager glanced between us, clearly unsure. Claire, are you sure about this? I smiled, opened the envelope, and laid its contents on the desk. It wasn't a marriage application. It was a formal complaint signed, sealed, and co-signed by half the village of Greenfield. No, I said clearly. I'm reporting Ethan Carter for professional misconduct, character defamation, and falsified rumors. Ethan froze. What? I looked him dead in the eye. You wanted a report? Here it is. His face went pale, then red. You tricked me? You came here to humiliate me. No, I said.
You did that to yourself.
I'm just making it official. The manager read the letter. Every word laid out Ethan's past his manipulation, the affair with Vanessa, the fake adoption, the smear campaign, the threats. Every single detail was backed by first-hand witness statements and even village signatures. When the manager finished reading, he slammed the file down. Mr. Carter, consider yourself under investigation. You may leave. And just like that, Ethan's world started to crumble. But this was just the beginning. After that day, Ethan Carter's reputation in his office was absolutely torched. The formal complaint backed by real names and real stories spread like wildfire, and the entire building started whispering behind his back. At first, he tried to act like it didn't bother him, laughing too loudly in the break room, pretending like he was being framed, that I was just some bitter ex trying to ruin his life because he moved on. But the truth stuck. No matter how many lies he tossed into the air, no one could ignore what was written in black and white: how he used me, cheated on me with Vanessa Collins, tried to sneak back into my life, and when that didn't work, trashed my name with cruel rumors. Within a week, the director of his office slapped a notice on the board announcing that he was suspended pending an internal review. And within a month, he was officially terminated.
Fired. Disgraced.
Irrelevant. Normally, I would have called that justice. End of story. Roll credits. But I knew Ethan better than that. He didn't go down quietly. He disappeared for a while, vanished from public sight like a roach when the lights turn on. Part of me hoped that meant he finally gave up, crawled back to whatever hole he came from, and left me alone forever. But hope is a dangerous thing. One night, after staying late to grade papers, I walked home through the side alley near my apartment, something I'd done 100 times before, and before I could process what was happening, I was shoved hard from behind. I hit the ground, hands scraping against concrete, my breath knocked out of me. I heard footsteps, then a low, sickeningly familiar voice say, "This the one?" I looked up to see a group of men standing over my strangers, all of them, except for one, Ethan Carter, stepping out from the shadows like some horror movie villain. His eyes weren't desperate anymore. They were dead. "You think you're so smart, Claire," he sneered. "Ruining my life. Getting me fired. Embarrassing me in front of the whole city. What did you think would happen?" One of the men chuckled. "How much are you getting for her?" "Enough," Ethan said, voice cold. "There's an old guy out in the country who'll pay a good price for a pretty face and a sharp tongue." And just like that, the full picture hit. Mayhay wasn't just angry. He was deranged. He was going to sell me.
Traffic me.
Like I was nothing more than a piece of meat. And the worst part? He'd done it before. In my past life, when I was dying, I'd always wondered why Ethan was so calm, so eager for me to just sign the divorce papers and disappear. But now, seeing him like this, I knew he'd always had backup plans. Always had escape routes built on the suffering of others. But I wasn't the same Claire Bennett he thought I was. I wasn't weak, and I wasn't alone. I smirked through the pain and said, "You might want to turn around." Sirens blared in the distance. Red and blue lights flashed against the alley walls. Ethan's eyes went wide as the men around him started panicking, looking for exits. "What the hell, how?" he shouted. I slowly stood up, blood dripping from my palms, but head held high. "You've been following me for days. Did you really think I would notice? I called the cops the second I knew you were back in town. This little stunt? It's your final act." Within minutes, officers swarmed the alley, tackled the thugs, and arrested Ethan on the spot. He fought, screamed, swore, but none of it mattered. I watched as they handcuffed him and shoved him into the back of the cruiser, his head ducked low, his eyes still burning with disbelief that Amy, the woman he once saw as weak and disposable, was the one who destroyed him. My dad arrived at the station not long after, wild-eyed and furious. When he saw me, bruised but alive, he hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. "Claire," he choked, "I should have done more. I never should have let that monster near you. I'm so sorry." "It's not your fault, Dad," I whispered. "He fooled all of us. But he won't hurt anyone else now." The investigation that followed uncovered everything. After losing his job, Ethan had fallen in with a trafficking ring, yes, a literal criminal network that dealt in women and children. He hadn't just planned to hurt me. He'd already helped hurt others. The trial was swift and public. As the star witness, I sat in the front row and watched him stand before the judge, shackled and silent. The prosecution laid out his crimes one after the other: abuse, coercion, assault, conspiracy, trafficking. He had no defense. Just excuses. Just pathetic attempts to paint himself as the victim of a vindictive woman who turned on him. But it didn't work. The judge delivered the verdict with no hesitation, guilty on all counts. Ethan Carter was sentenced to death. I didn't cheer. I didn't cry. I just stared at him as he was led away in chains, his face pale and empty, the fire finally gone from his eyes. And in that moment, I felt no pity, no regret, no guilt, just peace. He had taken everything from me in my last life, me youth, my dreams, my dignity. This time, I took everything back. And I wasn't done yet. It had been months since Ethan Carter was sentenced, and for the first time in 2 lifetimes, I could wake up without the weight of his shadow pressing down on my chest, without the threat of his voice lurking around every corner of my mind. But just when I started believing that chapter was truly over, the past came knocking literally loud, angry, and dragging a child with it, because of course it did, and of course it was Vanessa Collins, standing outside my door with puffy eyes, ragged hair, and a little boy clutching her coat, looking like a storm that had finally lost the strength to rage. "Claire Bennett," she shouted, her voice sharp and brittle. "Where's Ethan? Where's my son's father?" And for a moment I just stared at her, not because I was shocked to see her, but because the audacity was almost too much to process. Because what did she think she was going to get from me? Comfort? Sympathy? Answers? She got none. "He's dead," I said flatly, stepping into the doorway but blocking it with my body. "Executed months ago," and the words hit her like bricks to the chest. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again, but no sound came out, her hand gripping the boy's shoulder as if he'd float away without her. "No, you're lying," she snapped, though her voice cracked halfway through the sentence. "Ethan wouldn't leave us. He said he'd send money, that he got promoted, that he'd bring us to the city. Sun said we'd be a family." And I sighed, not out of pity but exhaustion, because how many more people had Ethan lied to? How many futures did he destroy with his sweet-talking poison? How many lives had he manipulated into depending on his fake promises? "Vanessa," I said slowly, carefully, like I was talking to someone half-dreaming, "that money you were getting? It wasn't from some office job. It was blood money, earned through hurting innocent people, trafficking women and children, people like me." And I watched as her face slowly crumpled, not into grief, but confusion and disbelief, because deep down I think even she didn't want to believe she'd tethered her life to someone that evil, someone who used her as a tool just like he did me, just like he did everyone. "You're lying," she said again, weaker this time, and I shook my head, stepping back into the apartment just long enough to grab the court documents from the top drawer, the very papers that listed Ethan Carter's conviction and execution order, stamped and signed in heavy black ink. I handed them to her without ceremony, watched her eyes dart across the page, her lips moving silently as she tried to make sense of the words, and then nothing, no screaming, no sobbing, just silence, eerie and heavy, as she stood there frozen, her son gripping the hem of her coat like he was afraid she'd fall. "He promised," she finally whispered, staring straight ahead. "He said he'd take care of us." And I couldn't help the bitterness that bled into my voice as I replied, "He also promised me love, a future, a child, and then pushed me into a freezing river to make sure I could never have one. So forgive me if I don't cry over your broken dreams." She didn't respond. Not with words anyway. Just blinked at me like I was some stranger speaking a language she didn't understand. And for a second, I almost felt sorry for her, almost. But then I looked at the little boy standing beside her, wide-eyed and silent, and I realized I didn't have to hate her or forgive her. I just had to make sure this kid didn't grow up poisoned by the same delusions. "Vanessa," I said, softer this time, "whatever happened between us, whatever lies Ethan told, that boy is innocent. Don't ruin him with your bitterness. Don't raise him to become like his father." And, to my surprise, she nodded, not dramatically, not tearfully, just one stiff motion, like her brain finally caught up with reality. She clutched the papers to her chest and turned without a word, walking away with slow, unsteady steps, the boy glancing over his shoulder once before following her. And just like that, they were gone out of my doorway, out of my life, and hopefully, someday, out of the wreckage Ethan left behind. I stood there for a long time after, staring at the empty hall, letting the quiet wrap around me like a blanket. No rage, no vindication, just calm, like the final page of a long, bitter novel. And when I finally closed the door and walked back into my apartment, I felt lighter than I ever had, because the past was buried, the monsters defeated, and I was still here, breathing, living, rebuilding. I poured myself a cup of tea and sat by the window, watching the city buzz and move below, and for the first time, I thought about the future not in fragments or regrets or what-ifs, but as something real, something mine, something untouched by guilt or shame. Because in the end, I wasn't just the woman Ethan betrayed. I wasn't the housewife who lost everything. I wasn't the victim who died unloved and unwanted in a hospital. Beatty was Claire Bennett, survivor, teacher, daughter, and woman who clawed her way back from a lifetime of lies and chose to live, really live, this time.